Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Eye of Africa. I am your host, Aina Fadina. Today I am here with the wonderful, talented Ayesha Jordan. I call her multidisciplinarian. She's a writer, a dancer, musician, a producer, and just so many other labels and hats that she wears. And we're going to have a discussion about those labels and what those things mean to her. So, hi Ayesha.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Thanks for having us today.
Yes, welcome.
So, I mentioned you have all these labels and hats that you wear. How do you maintain that?
Oh, how do I maintain that? Patience and perseverance. Yeah, I think it's just continuing to focus on whatever it is that you're working on at that time. And then when it's time to switch gears, you switch gears. And then sometimes, you want to switch into something else. And you're like, no, I need to kind of stay focused on this thing so I can get it done.
Yeah.
But I think you just kind of have to follow your impulses and your intuition in the moment.
What is your formal training, actually?
My formal training, so I went to Clark Atlanta University in Atlanta, Georgia, HSBCU, and I studied theater there.
Okay.
So I got my bachelor's in theater arts, and then after that, I went off and did an acting internship at the St. Louis Black Repertory Company in St. Louis, Missouri. And then took some time, did some work, and then I studied dance. I got a professional diploma in dance studies at Laban in London.
Okay.
So yeah, that's my formal training. Those two schools, Laban and Clark Atlanta.
Oh, I didn't realize that you did have the dance.
A little something.
Yeah. Oh wow. And how was that transition from all those things? How have they helped you sort of mold you into who you are today?
They've given me kind of a great toolbox. I would say that to some degree, because I've always been interested and I've always loved dance, but I didn't do it growing up. It was just something I did with my friends for fun. With theater, studying theater, that set me up to be able to pursue a career in acting. But I also worked with a company in Atlanta called the Freddie Hendrix Youth Ensemble of Atlanta, and they devise and create their own material. So that gave me sort of an instruction manual for, ways to create your own work, which is something I've been doing for several years now, and then incorporate the dance into that. Then it just gives me this nice stew of disciplines that I can now play with, span.
Yeah. I think every time I think about, like when I see dancers and performers, and I'm like, from a physical perspective, that's one thing. From a psychological perspective, that's like a whole other thing as well too.
Yeah.
And the ability to just like train the mind, body, and soul at the same time, I think it's sort of like an exercise. It's a routine, constantly on it. When do you take time off?
When do I take time off?
How do you take time off?
I guess that's the advantage to being an artist. And not having a full-time job. Because to some degree I set my own schedule, which is probably just as equally challenging, because then you have to stay sort of on top of your game and give yourself a schedule and stay motivated enough to do stuff, which oftentimes it's just like, I don't feel like it today. And I mean, some people are more disciplined than others, and I'm still working on my discipline a little bit.
Okay, so you grew up in Virginia.
Grew up in Virginia.
And how did they create a structure for you to kind of pursue your passion?
They were great. My parents are great. Yeah. It's funny because growing up, my parents were never strict. They kind of just let me do what I want to do. I mean, there were rules, of course, and they, taught me how to be like a good person and, those types of things that parents hopefully teach their children. But they really let me be free. So freedom was something that's always been available to me as a child. I didn't have, I never really had like a strict curfew. They weren't like, oh no, you can't do this, or you shouldn't pursue a career in this, like be this, be that. They've just said, be a good person, do what makes you happy. And they trusted me, which was really cool. And so that kind of opened up the door for me to just follow my bliss.
At what point did you move to New York? Take us in a little transatlantic journey of your...
It's just transatlantic journey. Well, after college, I went to St. Louis, back to Atlanta. From Atlanta, Amsterdam, and then London, and then back to Atlanta. So then I moved from Atlanta to New York in 2008.
Okay.
And at that point, I was totally like, I just gotta get out of Atlanta. Like, I have a love-hate for Atlanta. I think it's a great city. A lot of my friends are still there, but it was just time.
Yeah.
You know, try something new career-wise and see what New York, what the hype was. So it was like New York bound, 2008, and let the grind begin.
And how's New York treated you?
It's been great.
Yeah.
It's been really, really great. You know, I've had lots of life experiences since I've been here, you know, for 8 years. I've had many like high points. I've had my like other, I'm not gonna call them low, but those other moments. And work-wise, I mean, I feel like I'm doing the things that I want to do. I mean, there's always more, and there's more that I want. But I mean, I'm able to eat and do more than that. So that's good.
I think that's the beauty of New York. I think when you move here, a lot of times you have hopes, aspirations. It's like this amazing city. But I think the beauty is the people that you actually meet here. There are a lot of misconceptions about the city. Everyone's on their grind. Everyone's running around, ripping and running. Yeah. But I think there's a sense of like collectives within different industries that everyone has each other's back. I think that's the one thing I appreciate the most about the city. And there's always something, everyone's pulling you like, oh, here, you need X, Y, and Z. Right. This is the information that you need to get to where you have to go to. So it is a grind.
It is a grind. It's worth it.
It's worth it. It's worth it. Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about Eclipsed, the amazing, phenomenal play where you played, I believe your name was wife number 4.
The girl.
Girl number 4. Yeah. The girl. The girl. And tell us about Eclipsed and how the experience.
Eclipsed, that play. Talk about, take out your heart and throw. First, it was an incredible experience, but I was initially involved in the production when it premiered at Woolly Mammoth in DC in 2009.
I see.
And that was, of course, my first time, you know, being a part of the show. And it's such a heavy, important, powerful play. And Denai, like, I feel like she just, you know, put her foot in it. And then Liesl, as a director, really just makes the actor, you have to give your all. And if you don't find a way, you know, she will make you.
You will find a way.
You will find a way. Oh, you will find a way. In the best way. In the best way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it required a lot of research and a lot of, you know, we watched lots of movies, read books, and then, you know, fast forward to doing it here in New York. I mean, it was just kind of like revisiting that. And then some, because of course, you know, there's been more information. You know, there's just, as time goes by, you can get more, you have more access. And for me, I was able to that material sat in me for, you know, years. Because that's what, 7 years, I guess, 6, 7 years later. And being older than I was then, and what life, you know, teaches you, then you, as an artist, have more to bring to it, but then also what you're able to extract. And it doesn't make it any easier, though, because it's still just really heartbreaking, you know, material.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about the play itself. And it was like a historical play on Broadway, first play directed by a Black woman, all cast, Black women. Two of the lead producers are Black. You know, it was just a very Black production, which is phenomenal. And the fact that women were the ones doing this on Broadway really, you know, really made it something like major, you know, history making, which I think is super important and valuable. I'd also say that the fact that, you know, it was nominated for what, 1, 2, 3, was it 3 Tony Awards? I don't remember. And the host of other awards that were
that people were nominated for. In turn makes it historical in that. But I think just the reach and the fact that people who had no idea about the story and these women in Liberia and what they had to go through, the fact that this play and this exposure on Broadway brings it to light to people who had no idea, I think is super important. And the fact that they had these people coming, you know, towards the end of the run and speaking the names of young women across the globe who, you know, have been abducted and become sex slaves or, you know, various other things. I think that's really something big. Like that doesn't happen every day on Broadway for sure.
Absolutely.
You know, you're not walking down the theater like, oh, this was so much fun. The dancing was phenomenal. It's like, no, this like touched me. This is like, it's more than just entertainment. It's like, no, it's going to reach you.
And the beauty of it was like instances where you felt like crying and, you know, you would cry and you would smile and then, you know, it was so funny at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I think it's one of the things where when we think about war, we think about, you know, people killing people, but we don't really think about the lives of the individuals who are in this communities, in these refugee camps, and the way they have to survive.
Right.
The manner in which they have to survive and how all these women collectively were like, you know what, we're in this together.
Right.
That for me was beyond just powerful. The sense of unity that there's women, it's like, okay, you're girl number one, like let's just like, I got you.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I think that was a phenomenal experience, and how everyone just like, you had each other's back. Yeah.
And when it's down to survival and just, you know, maintaining day to day, you know, it's best to stick together.
Right.
I think support each other.
Right.
And then important.
There were some scenes there where obviously we couldn't see what was happening, where women were getting raped by the soldiers. How did you prepare yourself for that psychologically?
Psychologically, well, one thing I did was I would just go on YouTube, look at videos, and listen to stories of the women who'd gone through these things. Listen to, you know, stories that the mothers, you know, or the parents of these girls, you know, had to deal with. That, you know, just whatever research I could find, you know, there were all the films that we saw when we were doing research for the show. I think that was the kind of the initial starting point. And then for me personally, I mean, of course you have to figure out what aspect of yourself you can bring to the table and kind of merge with it. And I mean, on one level, it's just imagining like, and you can't even imagine it, but trying to at least place yourself somehow in the shoes of these women. But then you also have to make sure that after it's over, you allow yourself to release, because you can't, if you carry that with you, it's really, it's intense. It's very intense.
And what was the biggest lesson from that experience for you?
The biggest lesson from the Eclipsed experience, I think, to make art that matters, you know, for me, because that's the most important thing you can do. And I mean, of course, there's always going to be times when you just want to do something because it feels good or it sounds good or you like the way it looks. But it's, if you can give it a purpose that can be more than just the superficial, I feel like it creates something that's going to last in a much longer, you know, it's going to reach further and it's going to serve more people at the end of the day. Yeah.
I think watching it as an African American is that, you know, when it comes to labeling and identities and all these things, how were you able to live as an African woman? I don't know. I don't know if that's the right. You know what I mean?
No, but I know what you mean. That is the challenge, I think, also, and I guess where, you know, acting comes into play to some degree. The one thing for me that was like a great connecting point was that the fact that enslaved Africans in America were the ones that went back to Liberia. So I was like, okay, you know, there's a connection there. So it's like some of these people, you know, some of these women could have been descendants from Africans who were brought to America, then went back to Liberia. And, you know, who knows who I'm related to or where my DNA stretches precisely, connects to precisely. But I think that in that regard, it really gave me at least something that could make me feel like, okay, there's a connection, there's a tie-in. Because just the way the slave trade worked, it's like our ancestors have all gone through just some really, really tough times and tough hardships. Of course, I live in the United States, so it's like life has not been hard.
Right.
When you look at what these women have to deal with and what they have to go through. So yeah, that I think it's something that I still actually feel like I constantly process even now, to some degree, even looking back and be like, okay, well, as an African American, what can I do to make my performance and experience in this show like more African?
Right.
Yeah. It's just interesting because you just have to immerse yourself, I think, to some degree in the culture.
Right. And have you visited Africa at all?
I've actually never been.
Never. Oh,
I know.
Wow. No, because I saw you and you had the accent, like everything was like down packed, and I was like, oh wow, she's super impressive, and just being able to just kind of just go into the zone of who that girl was, into her character every single night that you had to perform that. I was like, yeah.
But I think that's where, the experience is collaborative. Because for me, like, can I do that by myself? No, I don't think so. I mean, I could try.
Right.
Personally, I think I get a better result. Fortunately, having a director, working with a writer who, is also of African descent. And then being surrounded by women who are all going through a similar process. I mean, half of the cast was, or is from, or of African descent from various countries. Right. And then I would say a few of us, were African American. But I think the fact that we were all working so closely together and doing research together, it really makes it that much easier and gives us support.
And how can we continue that experience into like everyday life? How can we sort of immerse what you experience at work, and how can we sort of move that going forward?
I think I don't know, I just wish that just collectives would form and people can just be educated about various cultures and really allow ourselves to integrate in a way that's supportive and also accepting and supportive of our differences, but like willing to learn what each individual or each group, has to offer and bring to the table, because I think that's what makes us so amazing and incredible. I mean, when I think about the history of African Americans in this country, it's like, clearly these are people who, have African roots, and clearly those roots still live in us today. Absolutely. Otherwise, what we've created, hip hop, jazz, all the things that we have sort of birthed.
Absolutely.
In America, I mean, they come from this history that we have.
Right.
So I feel like if we can all understand that and sort of just allow ourselves to continue to influence each other, it's like it's only gonna get that much better. So
which I think is happening. I think it's happening because even you look at, if you play a lot of Afro pop or African pop music now, you hear elements of rap and reggae in those things now. So I think it's happening through music. Even when you look at our foods as well too, if you deconstruct it,
it's very similar.
Yeah.
It's so similar.
Yeah.
It's incredible. But like, you stand us up in a room, it's going to be difficult for a lot of people, especially if you're just looking on a global scale.
Right, absolutely.
To say like, okay, this person's from here,
Right.
And I feel like, especially with what's going on in the States and with police shootings, et cetera, it's like the stronger we are as a unit,
absolutely,
the better off will be. It's like we could just stand together collectively versus like...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you traveled recently around the United States. You did how long was the road trip again?
3 weeks, 5 days.
3 weeks and 5 days. What did you realize about America and about being an American that you never thought about before?
I realized that it's huge. This country is big, and there's lots of empty space. Geographically speaking, it's varied in so many different ways, from the South to, the Southwest to, the Northeast. Like, it's just so different
Yeah.
visually. And it also just makes you realize, like, wow, before colonizers came and whoever else, Native Americans, like, had this country, like, and I don't want to say on lockdown, because the way they treat it is different than the way I feel like we treat it.
Absolutely.
It just makes me wonder, like, how much more peaceful this place would be, and what it would look like if it were respected in a similar fashion.
Yeah, I think that probably for me, I'll probably have the same experience as well too. It's like, oh wow, this is where they live, this is their culture, this is, because we're not educated on all these things at all.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kept in a very small little portion of our textbooks, and then otherwise just kept out or just, minimized.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate.
That's unfortunate. And I think it's something that where we all have work to do as well too. And for me, like there are a lot of things about American history that I'm just learning now.
Yeah.
Just due to, I think the internet is an amazing tool that we have. And just having conversations with people, and I always tell them, unless we have these uncomfortable conversations, then it's like we're not really going to progress as a society. Right. So, yeah.
But it taught me too that we need to travel more.
Yeah.
We need to travel. We need to like get out and travel.
So you recently you wrote a project,
Shasta Geaux Pop.
Yeah. And tell me about it. I'm so upset I missed it.
Oh, yeah. It's all good. She's coming back.
Oh, great. So yeah, you wrote, directed, like it was...
I didn't direct it.
Oh, you
I
didn't
wrote
direct it.
No,
you wrote it. Okay.
Charlotte Brathwaite was the director.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was a collaborative, experience, a collaborative performance. It was my homegirl, Shasta Geaux Pop. Very near and dear to my heart. She was the star. And it was just this crazy sort of performance party, where people come in kind of not knowing exactly what to expect. And it turns out to be like a concert performance party. And Shasta has these ridiculously silly, zany, funny songs that are very interactive. And I had a wonderful lighting designer, costume designer, and a team of my music folk and other collaborators. It was just, it was incredible.
How do you get inspired at all these projects you're working on?
How do I get inspired?
Yeah, how do you, what inspires you, what motivates you?
I think people, life, sometimes you'll just be sitting around and something will make me laugh or just seem so ridiculous. And I'm like, oh, it's like an idea, and that's like, it'll be a little nugget, and I'll store it somewhere. And then at some point, maybe I'll go back to it and just start writing something around it. But really, I just think it's my desire to make people laugh and have a good time and like meet new people somehow keeps ideas flowing to me that do that and create that experience. And that's kind of what Shasta is, or was, the show. Yeah.
What are the sacrifices that you would advise people who are like, I want to do X, Y, and Z, but I don't know how? What would you say to them?
I mean, you have to first take a leap, and you just have to start doing something that's in that direction. But you have to also kind of, I'm always like, go hard or go home. Like, go in, knowing that it's something you want to do, and be committed. Be committed beyond your fear. Be committed, beyond other people's expectations. But also, be willing to accept, be willing to accept failure as an option. It's like, you can go with the model like failure is not an option, but sometimes things don't go the way you expected, and that's okay, because you learn from it. That doesn't mean you're going to stop doing it.
Exactly.
It just means you're going to like change up your method, fix your methodology, find a different little route. There's many ways to get to one point. And I think you just have to stay committed, and also, especially working in the arts, I think, nowadays, especially with TV, social media, everybody wants to be famous. But it's not, it can't be about that.
Yeah.
I think if you're trying to create something that's going to have longevity and value, it's like, don't worry about fame. Right. And you can't really worry about money, like in the same way. I'm not saying don't try to make money, because I want to make,
Absolutely.
But I think that can't be the main focus, because then, your art suffers. Because what are you going to do if you're working on a really phenomenal project, but it's not feeding you? It's like, do you stop doing that to do something that's like lame? It's like, no. So sometimes that's a sacrifice you have to make because the payoff in the end is going to be much greater. I think
it's always like, just like go through the rut now. It's like about the end game, and just kind of like think about that. But it's tough. It's tough. I've been the same way as well too. Like I constantly have that challenge and prepping myself for that, and I always say thank God for the team that I work with, and just everyone that's around you. They're like just keep going. I'm like, I can't. They're like, yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
And then you realize something happens and you get excited. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing. Is make sure you have like a great support team.
Absolutely.
Whether it's family, friends, like lovers, whoever. Like, just make sure that you've got a team of people that cares about you, and they're not gonna let you fall down. It's like, if you need to eat, we got you. Come over. I'm gonna cook you some dinner.
Right. I'm like all those teas, all those like, let's have lunch. I got this. I'm like, oh, thank you. If only you knew what this means to me right now. No, that is so real. Yeah. That's absolutely real. So it seems like you have a very good relationship with failure.
I mean, yeah. I ain't never scared. Yeah.
Too scared.
No,
it's true.
No, I get scared, but there's just only one way you'll ever find out, and that's to do something. It's like, it's okay if I fall. I'll dust myself off, fix my little scab, put a Band-Aid over my wounds.
Keep going.
Cry a few tears.
Yeah. I think that's the beauty of just being in a creative space, allowing yourself to expand, and when you have to contract and then you expand, you get into so many different ways.
Right.
Yeah. Do you find that easier to do in terms of how you just like you morph into this different elements?
It's definitely gotten a lot easier. I feel like when I first started working, because you just always you don't want to take it personally, but sometimes you're like, is it because I don't look a certain way? Is it because my hair is like this, or is it because, and now what I've realized is it has nothing at the end of the day really to do with me.
Absolutely.
These are other people making choices about something that's their dream, their goal, their mission, and I'm somehow trying to or waiting to see if I'm supposed to be inserted into this mission or not. And if I'm not, then that's okay.
Yeah.
And even if with my own project, sometimes I'll work on something, I'll be like, I look back at it and I'll be like, that was not, that wasn't very good. And then I'm like, okay, what did I learn from that?
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't do these kinds of things. Like, say no. And I don't know, it's just interesting what it opens you up to, and even intuitively what you learn.
Yeah. So I always ask myself, what would I tell 13-year-old Aina? What would you tell the 13-year-old Ayesha?
Oh, the 13-year-old Ayesha. I would tell her, don't worry. You're going to get a boyfriend. All these things will eventually happen. And like, just be happy with the way things are going, nice and slow, because it's better that way. Which has been good. And I would tell her that keep doing what you're doing. Like, keep allowing yourself to be goofy and silly and awkward when you're awkward, and be okay with how you look, and that you're on the right path.
Right.
That's exactly what I would tell you. You're on the right path. And just, if you have an interest or a desire in something, just really go for it and allow yourself to immerse yourself in that. Like, read about it, study, do the research, and just don't be scared.
Yeah. And let's just say we're like, on the porch, we're, having our drink. Yes. We're like in our 80s. Yes. What would you tell Ayesha now? Where you just say anything you want to say?
I'd be like, look, honey. Shook 'em. I would tell her that stay focused and to really don't allow yourself to get too sidetracked by anything like unnecessary. I think that I would also, say allow yourself to continue to be vulnerable and continue to, put yourself in experiences that can be frightening, and because you're going to always come out on the safe side.
Right.
And to not fear your success, accept it. And then you're going to be like, look at all these grandbabies surrounding you, honey. You got family. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
No,
and thank you again for welcoming us into your amazing home. It's
Thank
I was like,
you.
it's quite nice to be in someone's house today.
Yay! Come anytime.
Trust me, I will.
I'm Africa. Come to my house.
Yay! We'll have our party here. Thank you.
Yes,
thank you so much. So, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Eye of Africa. Thanks to Ayesha Jordan. And I hope you guys are going to go ahead and pursue your passion. And until the next one, take care.